Hello, I'm Carol Ann Riddell, and this is Science and You. We may live in the concrete jungle, but that doesn't mean we can't have our own farms, gardens, and forests right here in New York City. Today, we take you to Swale, a floating forest where people can pick fresh food for free. The barge travels throughout the 5 boroughs, bringing a taste of nature and healthy foods from pier to pier.
My name is Mary Mattingly. I'm an artist and founder of Swale. Swale is a floating food forest. It's a place where people can come on and pick fresh food for free. It's on the water for a few different reasons. One is so we can actually purify the river water and use it to grow the plants. Another is so we can move around from pier to pier. And I think the most important reason is that the water is really the true commons in New York City. It's a place that's truly public where anyone can come, and the more people we believe we can engage in the watery space, the more we can talk about the commons and then land as a commons too. And we really want to ask, what could happen if we could grow and pick food publicly on public land in New York City.
New York has a policy that says that you can't harvest food for free on public land. But there's a loophole because it doesn't say that you can't do that on public waters.
We're very passionate about this project, so you definitely feel this energy with the people that I've worked with. We come from all different backgrounds. I'm an engineer, there are artists, there are community organizers, there's educators. It's like a little microcosm. Like, you see all of the different pieces that it takes to have such a successful project.
Get ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
When we're on the water, which is kind of such a fantastical space as we're moving around, and we get to feel the wake of every boat going by. So it's a great metaphor for community. You really feel the impact of everyone else. People usually just come on and someone is here to explain what's going on, because I don't think a lot of times people know that they can pick anything. So while we have signs expressing what things are, I think that our biggest job is to say you can pick anything, and people are really amazed. We're in such a commodified culture that it's really insane almost to think about something that's just offered to you, that's just a gift, and why can't that be everywhere?
But everything you're handing out to us, we can actually eat, right?
Everything I'm handing to you, you can actually eat, yeah.
We wanted to just grow perennials because we knew that yearly it would just be easier to care for. As the trees grow up, there'll be more and more fruits produced, but we're growing a lot of berries. Here we have blueberries, we have some raspberries, rhubarb back there, a bunch of different things that grow well together. So sometimes if you, say, plant marigolds next to tomatoes, the tomatoes will do better because there are less pests that will be attracted to them because of the marigold. So we're trying to do what's called companion planting here. So you'll plant one thing next to another thing to help one thing thrive, also to help the soil enrich the soil. So that's why we have this clover, it's an enricher for the soil as well. On Swale, we have 6 solar panels and 12 batteries, so we can power modest electrical needs, including pumps and things like that. And we use about 275 gallons of water a day in the heat of the summer.
We have decided, instead of taking water directly from the East River, that we want to take from the bilge. So the bilge is under the barge, and it's taking water from what we've irrigated the plants with, anything that's remaining will go into the bilge, and rainwater. We need to pump it out anyways. So it's kind of a way to close the loop, treat that water. So you had nitrite. 0? Yeah. That makes sense. Based on what we found today, I think it's clean enough to water our plants.
art is just like emphasizing on beauty, and that science is in its nature very beautiful, you know, like when I'm looking at soil under the microscope and I'm seeing this whole new world, it's beautiful. I think art imitates science, science inspires art, and so having a project like this just kind of makes sense.
It does straddle science, especially with when we get into water filtration and all of the different soil potential additives that are natural that we can do. So we also use things like cocoa hulls to enrich the soil, and there's lots that we've learned about worms. Nothing like this would ever feed New York City, but I think lots of smaller projects can really add to the diversity of places that we have to get food from.
When we think about food in the future, a city is limited on space. So we have to get creative on where we're going to farm, how we're going to farm. And so this is kind of an idea to push the envelope of traditional farming. A barge is a perfect space to have this kind of system. And Swale, I think, is a perfect example of how pushing limits in farming is a great idea.
It's a potential future for New York City. It's not, we're not there yet, but this is a proposal for potentially more spaces like this. When I think about Swale, I think about the potential for social love as a commons as well. So I think it's really about connecting with people in a space that comes alive when different people enter it. So it's really determined by who's on it and by how they're interacting with the plants and each other. It's metaphorical, and it's, you know, the product of like many people's emotions.
Do you find yourself glued to your phone, incessantly checking email, playing too many games, or just scrolling through your social media feeds? And does that qualify as addiction? Some experts think so and say our brains exhibit addictive behaviors with technology that are similar to those we associate with substance abuse.
Our threshold for boredom is so incredibly low these days that all it takes is getting into an elevator for 3 seconds or 10 seconds to feel enough boredom to decide that it's time to take out a phone. And that'll address that boredom. It'll make us feel less bored.
Adam Alter, associate professor at New York University, has written a new book called Irresistible: The Rise of Addictive Technology and the Business of Keeping Us Hooked, in which he paints a very familiar picture.
There are so many messages we're processing all the time. You don't have to be bored when you have a smartphone with you, and so you don't learn to cope with that feeling.
While we've all experienced boredom at one point or another, Alter says that because we use technology to facilitate many utility needs, such as alarm clocks, weather forecasts, and others, the sight of a Twitter or Instagram icon next to your weather app can lead to some addictive behaviors.
So when we think of addiction, traditionally we think of substance abuse. We think of people who take drugs or use alcohol or nicotine or some other substance that they abuse in some way. Behavioral addiction is different because you don't ingest any substance. But what happens with behavioral addiction is you find a particular behavior so compelling that in the short term you return to it over and over again compulsively because you want to do that. It feels good to you in some way. But in the long term it undermines your well-being in some respect.
Alter explains that when engaging in such behaviors, dopamine is released. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter that helps control the brain's reward and pleasure centers, hence why we feel the need to compulsively repeat these behaviors. He goes on to say, with each release, there is a need for larger doses of dopamine in order to feel the same good feeling an individual felt with their last addictive experience. In other words, once we reach a set of goals, we escalate them, wanting more.
So you reach one goal, maybe it's 1,000 followers on Twitter or Instagram, and the next goal is 2,000, and then 3, and then 4. If you have a Fitbit or a smartwatch, it'll tell you that you've walked 10,000 steps. That'll satisfy you for about 3 minutes, and then you'll decide the next day it's got to be 12,000 or 14,000. And this tendency to escalate goals and to escalate benchmarks is typical of addictive behaviors, because if you really did stop at, say, 10,000 steps, you'd lose interest in things like Fitbits very quickly.
Knowing that humans are wired for this kind of behavior, tech companies can design their products to, as Alter calls it, keep us hooked.
The big companies that do this so well have all sorts of tools at their disposal. Facebook, for example, introduced the like button in 2006. Until that point, most of Facebook's content was static. The like button allowed you to engage, to tell people what you thought of what they were posting. I think the like button is key for Facebook. Obviously, other platforms have different approaches. So Netflix, for example, as one episode ends, there's a feature called post play, which automatically loads up the next one. So you'll see if you're watching a TV show, as the episode's ending, there'll be a small box in the bottom right corner that says next episode beginning in 10, 9, 8, and there'll be a countdown. If you just sit there, the next episode will begin playing and you'll be, wrapped on the new episode. You have to actively do everything in your power to avoid that happening by stopping. What they want to do is they want everything to be bottomless. They want to eradicate your stopping rules, the rules that used to tell us it's time to move on. And so that's why you have post-play with Netflix, you have bottomless feeds on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, because if they end, that's a subtle cue that, hey, maybe it's time for you to move on.
After speaking with a New York Times reporter, Alter explains he learned that Steve Jobs didn't allow his kids to have iPads. This intrigued Alter, and he dug down a little more to discover that this practice is not uncommon among tech execs.
There's even a school in Silicon Valley called the Waldorf School of the Peninsula, and the school doesn't allow tech until the 8th grade. No iPads, no laptops, which is very unusual in schools these days. 75% of the kids there have parents who are Silicon Valley tech execs. So they're choosing to send their children to a school that explicitly does not allow tech until those kids are 13 or 14.
Alter finds this notion to be a little alarming, but gives some useful suggestions for toning down our own technology addiction habits. He says the best place to start is with where you choose to charge your phone.
Charge it somewhere else. Buy an old school alarm clock if that's what you've got to do, but keep the phone as far away from bed as you can. You shouldn't use your phone about 60 to 90 minutes before bed. And the reason for that is that the kind of light that these phones emit, this kind of bluish white light, we associate with daytime, and our bodies interpret as daytime light. So if you look at your phone an hour or an hour and a half before bed, you are inducing jet lag.
The key here is finding a way to use technology in moderation without some of those addictive behaviors that can be so easy to engage in over and over. So put down the phone, go to the park, read a book, or just enjoy the real-life people right in front of you. And joining us now is Dr. Ed Salsitz of Mount Sinai. He specializes in addiction medicine. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So I want to start with something that sounds sort of like a basic question just to set the stage for this. How do we define what addiction is?
There are many definitions of addiction. Some are more formal and more complete than others, but one of the simplest definitions is doing something over and over again that is causing harm. So use despite harm would be a very easy way of looking at addiction. You're doing something, it started off being pleasurable, it generally is not pleasurable as the addiction develops, but you cannot stop doing it and you continue to do it despite knowing that it is causing negative consequences to you, your family members, or other parts of your life.
I think, most of us are familiar with that in the sense of substance addiction, but then what is behavioral addiction? For example, we hear of gambling addiction. Is that a behavioral addiction?
Over the last number of years, a group of activities, which were initially called process addictions, are now called behavioral addictions. And gambling, as you mentioned, is one of them, and that is now officially included in the psychiatric manual of psychiatric diseases. But people also talk about shopping, people talk about food, people talk about sex, people talk about exercise, and people talk about the internet and the whole online activities that people can go overboard on and can resemble substance use disorder or substance addiction.
So let's jump right into that. Is this potential for technology addiction, is it actually officially an addiction, given that, I guess on the face of it, it doesn't seem as obviously bad for us as some of the other things we're talking about?
Right. So this is the interesting part about addiction. The drugs or the activities that people who are vulnerable can get addicted to are not necessarily bad in moderation. So alcohol would be a good example of that. It's legal. There's some data that shows moderate or modest drinking is good for the cardiovascular system. And yet there are 100,000 deaths from alcoholism a year in America. So it's that same vodka or the same wine. Everybody's drinking the same thing. It's a matter of how you deal with it, what your relationship is to the drug or the activity. So in terms of the internet, wow, I mean, it has made life incredibly better for many people. It's changed our world. There's no way to avoid it now if you're out there working and doing whatever else you're doing. The question is, can you use it in a way that doesn't cause you or others harm?
Do you think that in terms of the potential for technology addiction that could change? Is it something that, I have to imagine it's something being studied?
I think that a lot of people are looking at it because in China, they have a tremendous problem with what they call internet gaming, where teenagers do this video gaming. They've officially called it an addiction, internet video gaming, and they have scores of hospitals and rehab centers set up for adolescents who spend hours and hours a day with video gaming, don't go to school, don't work, don't do anything else. And so in China, they definitely consider it a problem. And I think that many people in the United States consider it a problem. This whole cyberbullying, people spending too much time on social media, people neglecting, let's say, their children or taking them out to do something because they're down in the basement doing video gaming or other things on the internet, or pornography. That's a whole other big category where people get lost in that issue as well.
What is happening in a person's brain that makes them want more of the addictive thing, even though they understand that it's bad for them?
Yeah. That's always the conundrum with addiction. Why does somebody continue to do something that is harming them? You know? The answer, I think, is that most of what become addictions begin in a benign fashion. And initially, whatever the activity or the drug is, provides pleasure to the person. And the way it provides pleasure is by releasing dopamine in a part of the brain called the pleasure reward center of the brain. And that's been well known in substance use disorders, that all the drugs that people may get addicted to, like alcohol, opiates, cocaine, cause an increase in dopamine in the brain, and that feels good. The problem is that as you continue to do that, you start to change the brain. And now, instead of having a lot of dopamine to be released, there's either no dopamine or very little dopamine. So now people don't feel good, they feel bad. But when they stop doing whatever it is that they've become addicted to, they develop withdrawal symptoms.
I see. And that's even worse than the feeling.
And that's worse. And that's been termed the dark side of addiction. And so to relieve that, they will either drink or spend more time on the internet, and it becomes a vicious cycle. And, you know, good treatment eventually is the only way out of that vicious cycle of relapse, doing it again, stopping, and relapse again.
Something for all of us to think about. Dr. Salsitz, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
When you think about what makes us attractive to other people, the bacteria in your gastro-intestinal tract is hardly the first thing that comes to mind. But Donna Hanover sat down with a scientist who says those creatures are a big part of what make us sexy.
Dr. Susan Erdman of MIT has studied microbes that live in the gut with stunning results.
Most people think of bacteria and other microbes in the gastrointestinal tract as being kind of gross and probably unhealthy. But is it true that your research shows they're actually essential and even make us sexy?
Our microbes can actually make us attractive to one another, and it's based on some very solid science.
The Erdman lab has done most of its work on mice.
So we took a bacteria that came from human breast milk, and we fed that in purified form in the drinking water to the mice.
The effect?
A more slender mouse waistline, ability to heal wounds more effectively, even things like larger testicles in the male mice.
Whoa. And were they proud of these?
They were. In fact, they would strut around the cage. We coined it mouse swagger. Part of that display is due to their more muscular physique. So things about the bacteria were actually changing the ratios of muscle mass to body fat.
And their fur looked a lot better, too.
Part of what we were seeing was actually new hair growth. And it would make sense that the hair looked better because it was newer, younger, fresher hair. But there was more to it than that. There were more oil glands associated with the hair follicles, and they were more actively secreting oils, specifically the kind of oils that increase the shininess of the hair.
Which breast milk bacteria are so helpful?
The genus Lactobacillus or the genus Bifidobacterium are very, very common beneficial microbes.
How do bacteria cause such changes?
One thing that's very clear is that it changes the immune system. At the same time, hormone levels change. And so we tried to understand a little bit more about how something that a mouse is eating might change hormone levels in the brain.
The mice ended up with a high level of oxytocin, often called the love hormone, which was significant in improving their appearance, making them more romantic, and boosting their ability as parents.
They displayed more babies successfully raised to weaning age toward the next generation.
Dr. Erdman began her research looking into how bacteria and other microbes are involved in cancer.
Starting decades ago, the work in my laboratory was focused on the relationships between bacteria that live in the intestinal tract, the inflammation and immune cells that happen at that location, and how that contributes to cancer, say in the stomach or in the colon. We made some discoveries that suggested that the bacteria that were in the gastrointestinal tract were actually influencing how events were happening in distant areas of the body, maybe in breast tissue, or in the liver, or in the lung.
That work on cancer continues, and she's hopeful about future discoveries. Back on the issue of how microbes affect sexiness, she mentioned sweat.
In the purest sense, sweat doesn't smell. What smells is the bacteria breaking down the various products of the sweat. And so certain kinds of bacteria actually contribute to the way BO smells and how opposite sexes might be attractive to each other as a result of that cocktail.
Kissing, which can spread contagious disease, may actually sometimes be another example of microbes working in our favor.
A lot of the body's defense mechanisms and the way that vaccinations work is actually through small exposures of novel things through the mouth. They call that oral tolerance. If kissing could be used as a way for the body to adjust to the new mate's microbial balance, it might actually be part of what helps a successful mating and a successful pregnancy move to the next generation.
Given this research about how our microbes, our bacteria can make us sexy to each other, what can we do to improve that situation?
Particular kinds of foods that fit in the category of being probiotic foods will not only boost the levels of the beneficial microbes by including them in the food, but they also provide the food stuff for those bacteria to eat once they're inside you. Sauerkraut is one example. Kimchi is another example. There are also some common milk-based examples, and one of them is kefir. Ideally, you use a yogurt product that includes live cultures on the label. Include lots of vegetable material in your diet. The citrus fruits will also cause blooms of the healthiest bacteria that live in our bodies. I think everybody should embrace their microbes and who they are. If you want to take good care of your microbes, watch your diet.
So the bottom line is the microbes in your gut have a much bigger impact on your health and your love life than most of us ever knew. So why not give those little creatures a food boost to help them do the job even better? I'm Donna Hanover for Science and You.
For more than 30 years, the USS Intrepid served as a floating airport for some of the military's most powerful aircraft. Now the museum is hosting an exhibit that displays some of the newest and most innovative aircrafts, drones. Our Andrew Falzone takes us on board to see these pilotless planes.
The first time you saw a drone, it might have looked something like this, a military plane with no pilot on board dropping guided munitions on a faraway target. And with names like Reaper and Predator, they were probably better off being far off. But the idea of what a drone is and what a drone does has evolved over the past decade. The Intrepid Sea, Air, and Space Museum's exhibit, Drones, Is the Sky the Limit, shows them being used for everything from scientific research to artistic performance and plain old family fun. Dr. Joseph Sion is a meteorologist for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Simply put, he's a real-life storm chaser.
It's a great experience. It's exhilarating, but it also is very fulfilling because I know my job is to help save people's lives and protect property, and that's really what we're doing.
As part of his innovative research into hurricane intensity, Dr. Sion has adapted a drone called the Coyote to study hurricanes. They were originally used by the Navy to hunt submarines. Compared to a global hawk, coyotes are small but sturdy.
It has a 5-foot wingspan and weighs 13 pounds. This type of drone flies very low. We have Hurricane Hunters, P-3 aircraft that fly into the storm at 10,000 feet. These guys fly at hundreds of feet. And the reason we use them is because we don't want to have a manned aircraft, as you might imagine, flying in very, very strong and turbulent conditions and maybe 50-foot waves with the ocean.
When a storm hits, Dr. Sion's team can deploy the Coyote from a tube in the Hurricane Hunter, gathering critical data.
It's a transfer of energy from the ocean to the atmosphere in that air-sea interface we call, and it's critical that we understand how the physics works in that environment. And if we can't sample, if we can't observe down there regularly because of the safety hazards, we can't understand it well.
From aboard the P-3, the crew can pilot the Coyote from a safe distance and monitor the data the drone is recording. Leading the charge in the consumer and creative space is Chinese drone maker DJI. While the company makes drones for commercial use, they're perhaps best known for their Mavic Pro and Phantom series drones, which allow everyday folks to get a bird's-eye view of the world around them. A series of sensors, including onboard GPS, allow wannabe pilots an ease of use that has eluded model aircraft hobbyists for years. DJI recently unveiled its newest drone, the Spark. It's a portable drone that literally takes off and lands in the palm of your hand. Groundbreaking software developments allow it to be operated with hand gestures instead of using a remote control. But often DJI finds its drones are being used in unusual ways.
Every single day, we are seeing uses that we never imagined drones would be put towards. There are entire billion-dollar companies that couldn't be possible without all the capabilities of what's in a phone. And in the same way with drones, we're constantly being amazed at the uses people put them towards.
One of those uses is for a drone called Snotbot. Aside from capturing breathtaking images of whales in open water, Snotbot is also able to take samples of whale breath, or at least what a whale exhales from its blowhole. It's the marine mammal equivalent of snot, and it's providing a unique perspective on some of the world's biggest creatures. In addition to the biological data, video recorded in 4K allows researchers to identify individual whales and observe intimate behavior at the surface, a feat that could only be previously accomplished with a helicopter. Meanwhile, back on the Intrepid, exhibit visitors can check out model aircraft from Amazon Air, which the company believes will play a key role in the future of its deliveries. And this unique contraption is the Volantis. It's a flying dress used by Lady Gaga at an album release event in 2013. Yet another example of how drones are the future of flight.
If you want to explore everything the Intrepid's drone exhibit has to offer, it runs until December 3rd. I'm Andrew Falzone for Science and You.
And that is our show for today. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Carol Ann Riddell. We'll see you next time on Science and You.